so much, Reggie. And good morning, beloved Oneness CSL friends and all those joining us from far and wide. You know, I'm really excited to be in self-contemplation with you as we continue to address the basic principles of the science of mind and spirit teachings this month. You know, I've been studying this particular teaching since 1999, and it never grows old. I mean, I don't even think I grow old because of it. I love this teaching. You know, it allows me to be whatever I want to be when I want to be it, and I call that freedom. It doesn't suggest that I become positive when I am feeling negative, but hands me a blend of scientifically proven practices buoyed up by spiritual principles and universal natural laws to use if I choose. This teaching does not boast. It is the only way, but does state that there is a power for good in this universe that we can use if we choose to. Now, the truth is we're always using it, but not always consciously. For me, consciously is with intention, with definite purpose for the goodness and benefit of all. None of us likes to hear that we should be smiling when we are frightened or angry, or that we should look to the good when we are immersed in the shadows. We don't need to debate the presence of light and darkness and light, as we know that this is a spiritual universe which is whole, perfect, and complete within itself, and therefore in all that exists, which exists in it and is one with it. So I'd like to start today by remembering a well-known gentleman by the name of Edgar Casey. And I'd like to begin with him in order to lead into this ideal of self-prophecy by knowing how to use the law. Edgar Casey has been called the sleeping prophet or the father of holistic medicine, and he was the most documented psychic of the 20th century. For more than 40 years of his adult life, Casey gave psychic readings to thousands and thousands of seekers. While in an unconscious state, he was able to diagnose illness, revealed lives lived in the past, and prophecies yet to come. Later in life, Casey would find that he had the ability to put himself in a sleep-like state by lying down on the couch, closing his eyes, and folding his hands over his stomach. Now, in this state of relaxation and meditation, he was able to place his mind in contact with all time and space, that universal consciousness, also known as superconscious mind. Now, many people are surprised to learn that Edgar Casey was a devoted churchgoer and Sunday school teacher. At a very young age, Casey vowed to read the Bible for every year of his life, and at the time of his death in 1945, he had accomplished this task. Perhaps the readings said it best. When asked how to become psychic, Casey's advice was to become more spiritual. Now, Holmes wrote much about the mystic state and felt that psychics read human thought while mystics sense the atmosphere of God. Holmes wrote, "The mystics of every age have seen, sensed, and taught the same truth. Psychic experiences, on the other hand, bears the exact opposite testimony, as they more or less contradict each other, for each psychic sees a different mental picture. The psychic sees largely through his own or another's subjective mentality. Consequently, the psychic's impressions are more or less colored by the vibrations of his own or another's thought. That is why, generally speaking, no two psychics see the same thing. Now, mystics have all sensed one identical reality, and their testimony is in no way confusing." Do you think Edgar Casey might have been both? And what about you? By means of the universal law of mind and action, you live a self-fulfilling prophecy. How to use the law, which is the intangible and invisible principle behind all of creation, is what we're talking about today. You know, we are using it all the time through the direction of our feeling charged beliefs. But how to proficiently use the law in a manner that creates greater ease and joy in living becomes a key question and a stepping stone to greater intimacy with the sacredness of life. In the conscious practice of using the law comes the awareness and development of our mystical nature. The part of us that knows that it is not so much about using the law to demonstrate our good, but using it to allow the Spirit in all as love and law to use us. The statement we sometimes use at the end of our spiritual mind treatments, also known as affirmative prayers, is this or something better, knowing that we know we don't know everything, but Spirit does. You know, when we begin adapting our thinking to preparing ourselves to our divine download and trust ourselves to apply this guidance, we consciously create our lives as self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, Merriam-Webster definition of self-fulfilling prophecy is this. They say it's the socio-psychological phenomenon of someone predicting or expecting something. And this prediction or expectation coming true simply because the person believes it will. And the person's resulting behaviors align to fulfill this belief. The principle behind this phenomenon is that people create consequences regarding people or events based on previous knowledge of the subject. It continues to state that there are three factors within an environment that can come together to influence the likelihood of a self-fulfilling prophecy becoming reality. And these would be appearance, perception, and belief. When a phenomenon cannot be seen, appearance is usually what we rely upon when a self-fulfilling prophecy is in place. American sociologist W.I. Thomas was the very first to discover this phenomenon. In 1928, he developed the Thomas Theorem, also known as the Thomas dictum, stating that if men define situations as real, they are real in their consequences. So then in spiritual terms, there is a fourth factor within the environment of a person's subjective mind, that creative factor of our reality, where both experiences and the infinite potential reside concurrently. Now, Holmes called this our mental atmosphere, determined by past or by our leanings, intention, focus, and willingness to trust our divine wisdom. Often, our mental atmosphere is a combination of both, isn't it? But it always depends where we lean. We know that we cannot rely on worldly events or home situations or the last conversation that went sideways or fabulously to determine our perception of ourself, God, expressing as us. So here is the defining moment. Right where our self-selected, self-imposed prison sentence can begin if we believe what they say. Now, in science of mind terms, they is akin to race consciousness. They say that growing old is not for sissies, but ascending the ladder of love and wisdom by living aligned with universal laws and spiritual principles is heaven on earth. Similarly, they say that when you are your own doctor, you have a fool for a client. Well, we don't have a doctor's training and can't always be the best objective judge of our conditions. However, we can intuit the best treatment course, which ends up being much of our own body of understanding that we didn't heed before as a means of prevention. This is when we become the fool, when we stake our well-being on intervention rather than prevention, which has nothing to do with a doctor's diagnosis. You know, we're here today to explore not race consciousness, but the right use of the law. And it is through the demonstration of our understanding of the right use of the law that we cultivate spiritual authority. Another way to describe becoming our own conscious, self-fulfilling prophecy. The right use of the law is using the law consciously for the highest good of all concerned by imprinting it with definite and clear thoughts for a specific purpose. Now, this is really highly to be noted because the more definite we are, the more definite the law will respond, because the law always responds affirmatively by saying yes, and it is impersonal and neutral. Now, again, as I said before, we're always using the law, but not always intentional in our use of it, nor are we always motivated by what Io talked about so beautifully in her meditation, that one causal inspiration of creation, love. In Dr. Holmes's own words in the Science of Mind text on page 54 and 55, he gives a relatable example on how to use the law. And I want to read directly from the text to you. He says, let us analyze this. One finds himself impoverished. He wishes to change this condition. He knows that it is not in accord with ultimate reality, that the spirit imposes no limitations. Therefore, he knows that his apparent limited condition has no real law to support it. It is simply an experience of consciousness. He wishes a definite result in the opposite direction. First, he realizes that the law of life is a law of liberty and freedom. He now states this law of liberty is flowing through him and into his affairs. But the image of his limited perception resists this idea of truth. And he is a definite contradiction of his statement of freedom. So right here, he must stop and declare that these images of limitation are neither person, place, or thing, that they have no power, personality, or presence, and no real law to support them. He does not believe in them, and they cannot operate through him. He is free from their influence forever. Now, he then begins to fill his thought with the idea of faith, the expectancy of good, and the realization of plenty. He senses and mentally sees right action in his life. He puts his whole trust in the law of good, and it becomes very real to him as he definitely speaks it into being, into his being, and into the being of his affairs. He denies anything and everything that contradicts his realization of this truth. Now, we must remember that we are the thinker and the thinker behind the thought, with capacity to be both subjective and objective within any given circumstances. Our intelligence is a universal mind functioning at the level of our concept of it. This, then, is the essence of our entire teaching. This is the creative process of invisible energy, of spirit becoming visible as form, otherwise known as the law of cause and effect. Spirit is first cause back of all life. And our thought and our emotion is the use we make of it, consciously or unconsciously. So I want to share with you quick tips. I've got 9 of them that when I practice them have ensured my right use of the law. Now, I'm sure you've got yours, but I want to share mine with you. First of all, I check to ensure that all my thoughts, decisions, and visions are all grounded and inspired in and as love. I remember that the seed of perfection is hidden within every thought infused with deep desire. And that means to me that within each plant, each seed, the perfect unfoldment to its own development and its own potential exists. If I leave it alone to mature through the natural law of growth and my faith, my trust. Another tip is that I believe that it is through the belief we establish our unity with spirit. We can do it no other way. And through our constant practice of communing with the sacred nature of this truth, we are positioned to derive the benefits which the greater mind is willing to reveal or impart to us. I know that spirit could only give me what I am willing to take. And what I am willing to receive is inextricably connected to who I believe I am. Now, another way to say this is the spirit imparts of itself as I can partake of its nature as me. And I always remember I've got to be mindful to be congruent in my self-expression. And most importantly, that means to me, I have to watch my words using loving and inclusive language. And this is just as important when I analyze my own mindset as it is when I'm forming perceptions of others. I love to encourage my wonder, my curiosity, my sense of play and innocence and imagination to call in original thoughts. Original thinking brings different results and new experience. One of the hardest things it is for me to do, as I imagine sometimes it is for you, is to look at a discordant fact and deny its reality. Since we know its seeming reality is borrowed from illusion, born in chaos, I need to take responsibility for co-creating my reality, as well as being accountable without question for all my results. And similarly, I must not reject or resist all the consequences of how I have used the law. Here's my big one. I need to understand the why in my desire intention to become my own spiritual authority. I say, is it to awaken the Christ consciousness within me to serve, to steward, and to support life? I often walk through my days saying, am I being for or against life as I show up? Now, neither the science of mind philosophy, science, or the mystics throughout the ages tell us to be positive about the negative. They don't tell us to do more, have more, to be more. They don't teach us that we have to cut, modify, alter, be more grateful, more kind, more spiritual. They say you're perfect, whole and complete just the way you are. They simply state to come to the understanding of the nature of all as the nature of the individual creation, to reveal our wholeness and revel in our truth, our divine humanity. So I asked the mystic in all of us, in me and you at this moment, what would it be like to be defined by the unknown instead of the angst that we sometimes self-generate in order to improve ourselves or gain approval from this world? Until the excitement of the unknown defines us, we are not free. Now, Holmes knew this, and more so near the end of his life, when he let that mystic out. Found in an excerpt of his writings in the Voice Celestial, we can have a glimpse of that within him that knew and was willing to be used by spirit. Take a deep breath with me again and bring yourself back into that beautiful, open, and receptive state as I share these words with you. In every drop, the seed. In every cell, the universe. In every soul, the life of God. And each contains full power of all. Life does not come in parts, but wholes. There is no separation, no near nor farther out, no deeper down or higher up, no void, no yonder, and no hopes that cannot be fulfilled. The power of all obtains in all, and everywhere is here and here is there. Draw thou on it, if thou wouldst truly be complete, nor suffer thirst again. Each soul is drawn from circuits of the universe, where life and action have their center, and where every point is joined with every point, and each event unites with each event, in sequence after sequence without end. And all the seasons of becoming are unfoldments of events that form a chain to stretch into eternity. And step by step, man walks among the sun and stars, consorting with the hosts of beings whose existence he has never known until he struck a higher chord of his own soul to which they could respond. What is the one word that would summarize the experience you know you are ready to reveal through you this year? Share this word. Speak this word. Think into this idea. Expand this idea and recognize this ideal in how you go about your day and in how others are being. The word symbolizes your longings. Your longings are telling you the truth of who you are. We don't need the brick to hit us in the head, the sky to fall, the ground underneath us to feel shaky to remember, or a psychic to read the subjective mind within us to predict our future or contact the dead. We have within us a power for good, and we can use it. And somewhere down the line, what will bring us the most joy and peace yet known is to let it use us for the highest good of all. So become your own spiritual authority by using the law rightly. Our dreams are waiting for us to come true. And I know you know that. I'd like to close today with a stylized version of the Ricky Byers song, Use Me. Use me, oh God, I stand in you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I can be. Use me, oh my child, I stand in you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I can do. And so it is.